Welcome to the Undefined Leader, where we reimagine leadership, redefine work, and get curious. Today, we're curious about confidence. Is confidence a leadership skill or not? Derek, when I say confidence, what comes to your mind?
For me, confidence is a belief. So I think it falls into our belief systems. And I think it comes from our experiences and basically our belief in our ability to do something or our belief in our ability to figure out something that we haven't done before. But it's not like a hard, tangible type of thing, and it can, and there's a spectrum of it, of arrogance and different things like that. But for me, confidence is a belief, but the key thing about the belief is it's like a realistic belief because you've specifically like put in the reps or put in the work or gone through things before. And that's what gives you the belief versus I think arrogance is like a false belief. So for you, what comes to mind when you hear confidence?
I love everything you said, but I feel like that's more of like a description of what confidence should be or like is. But I think then there's the other side of it is how confidence shows up in people. And so like if I'm just thinking of someone that's confident, there's kind of like two types of people that I think of. One is a charismatic, competent, someone that can speak really well and that you just want to follow and they just give you good vibes that you trust in. They seem very confident in what they do. There's that part of it. I'm curious, like we should go back to it and talk about charisma and confidence. That's an interesting one. Anyway, and then the other side of it is someone that's arrogant, someone that actually has no idea what they're doing, but they think they have ego, they think they're the best, they think they're the smartest in the room, and they mask their competence, the lack of competence, with confidence.
Yeah. And it's funny you said charisma because I actually think it's directly related to this, but I've always felt, and yeah, we'll talk about charisma another time. There's a whole leadership style that we've referenced before around charisma, the charismatic leadership style. So it is a skill to develop. I've always felt that I'm curious to your reaction to this because we've never talked about this. I've I've always felt that if we were to like actually formulate what is charisma, it's the ability to instill confidence in others.
Agree with that because I think that's even more detailed than what I how I would describe confidence. I mean, not confidence, but charisma, which like when you're around someone that's charismatic, then you feel better about yourself. You feel loved and heard and thought and just like you are special and important. And I think that is a very good like distinction that you just made of it's not just you feel good, but you feel more confident in yourself. I love that. That's interesting.
Yeah, because we it's like with charisma, it's kind of like it's hard to define, right? Like that's that to me, that's where I've arrived at one of the best definitions of it. But it's kind of like one of those we know it when we see it, and when someone has it, we're aware of it. We don't. I don't think we're necessarily super aware when someone lacks it. It's more of something that we're aware when somebody has it. But I feel like as a leader, it makes everyone feel confident of like, yeah, you know what? I believe also, because I said confidence is a belief. I also believe that they can do this. I believe that they have the skills to do this. I believe that we can do this, or, we can do this as a leader that comes from that charisma. It's like, it almost makes the confidence contagious. And
Hmm.
like, that's what charisma is. If we get into a little bit of like the arrogance thing, because again, I think all of these things are connected. I've always or I've sort of arrived at confidence and arrogance are in the realm of some of the same things, but it's basically how you treat other people with that belief. And, so confidence is like the belief that you're capable of something or you're capable of figuring it out. Arrogance is almost like at the disrespect or the expense of the others around you in a
Hmm.
way. Like it's one thing to believe you can do it. It's another thing to feel like you're the undisputed best at it.
Hmm. Yeah, that reminds me of just a sentence I heard years ago that really stuck with me. And I think it's a really core value that I have is don't dim other people's lights to make your light shine brighter. And that reminds me of how you just described it of in order for yourself to shine and show that you are the smartest in the room, are you dimming other people's light? And are you dimming other people's voice and making them feel less and disrespecting them for just to make yourself look better? So it's interesting. Like, so we started confidence and describing confidence, and there's almost like we're going down two paths now. There's confidence, as in like an internal confidence of your ability to be able to, it's like competence almost like, do you have the ability to do something and you're confident in that? But then there's also a confidence that's like your external confidence that could go positive or negative in a way of how you show up and how you make other people feel at the same time. Let's pick one of those routes first. And then so let's go with confidence versus competence side first, and then we'll go to the other right there. What do you think is the difference between confidence and competence?
Well, they are definitely different because I think somebody could be competent and lack confidence. And then on the reverse side, I think if you lack competence, but you're confident, you're probably actually more arrogant. So like they obviously are different there. I also think that again, confidence is a belief. Competence is
Skill.
demonstratable, right? It's hard for me. I think it would be hard, Alex, and I'm just thinking this through for me to necessarily demonstrate to you my confidence, but I can be confident. But I should be able to demonstrate to you my competence by my ability to do something or my ability to figure it out.
Think you can demonstrate your confidence. It could be from how you speak, like how you're communicating about something, how comfortable you are to dive into something versus how hesitant you are to dive into something. So I think it is a little bit of communication and behavior that demonstrates how confident you are in a situation as well. I do think, and I agree with you, they're completely different things. There's competence and confidence, but they do correlate with each other. And so, and I do think there is a leadership skill there that we can talk about of confidence, of should you be confident? Do your people that are being led by you want their leader to be confident? And then where is kind of like the breaking point of too much confidence with no competence versus confidence and competence are kind of aligned and correlated and working together at the same time.
Can I get a little academic for a second?
Go for it.
'Cause this is just something I love to talk about, and you just kind of described it. But again, to go academic, the Dunning-Kruger effect. Is that something you're familiar with, Alex?
Yes. Yeah, but tell us about it.
It's basically just if you chart on an axis competence with confidence and where they intersect and overlap. And this was a big study done by Dunning-Kruger, right? And what they found is the less competent you actually are, typically the higher confidence there is. And actually, the more competent you become, there tends to be a decrease in confidence. And so it's essentially someone who doesn't really know anything about something tends to be at the peak confidence. Like everybody, just look at the news and all of a sudden everybody's a constitutional expert. Everybody is an economic expert. Everybody is a medical expert and they pivot really fast. And obviously, like outside of like the few experts in those areas, most people are not, but the level of confidence that they're correct tends to be high. And then when you actually study something and when you actually get competent, your confidence drops. But what happens though is it drops, it drops, it drops, and then it stays down. And then all of a sudden later in the future, your confidence starts to go back up, but it never really achieves the level that you had when you were incompetent about the subject. So this is actually a really important thing to know as a leader. But I'm curious, Alex, from obviously you're aware of the Dunning-Kruger effect, but what do you think of that? And actually, when they've studied the relationship between confidence and competence.
Yeah, I agree, and we can find examples that show that this graph is accurate. Like for example, if I'm thinking of a new leader, someone that doesn't have a lot of experience in the competence yet, or maybe it's a leader that is just not very competent in leadership skills, they're usually the ones that are the most confident in a meeting. Like you can sit in a meeting and you can tell they're talking over people. They're the ones that have all the answers and not really asking questions and being curious. And they just show up to show their confidence in this area. I think, and I'm curious your thought on this too, Derek, of the reason it starts going down, the more experience you have and the more competent you get in it. Do you think there's a place for it that it's curiosity? Where now you're learning so much and you're experiencing so much that a lot of things that you might have thought before, you've proven that are incorrect. And so now it opens your mind a little bit. And you're like, oh, what else am I incorrect about? What else do I not know? And you become more curious. And the more curious you get, there is a dip of confidence because I don't know what I don't know. And I just realized that I didn't know what I didn't know. And there's so much more for me to learn. And then eventually you know it becomes a habit, it's a second nature, you have all this experience and confidence now that your confidence goes back up. Do you think it's like curiosity? That's my take on it. It's the curiosity piece that makes it go down.
Yeah, I think you could call it curiosity. I think you could also just call it like a level of self-awareness.
Hmm.
Increases of, oh wow, I didn't realize that there was so much more to this. Or like you said, I don't realize that I was wrong about a few of these things. Yeah, what else am I wrong about? Or what else info was I not aware of? And so yeah, there is like that almost like a crisis a little bit. They call it that in between, they call it the valley of despair of like, I'll never get good at this. I'll never understand it. And then as you just put in reps, your confidence starts to increase. So that's why in the beginning I said I think that confidence is a self-belief based on reality, based on I've done the work, I've done the research, I've done things. But where it strays away from arrogance is that realistic piece of it. But I could be wrong too, because I've spent so much time in this, that I realize it's complicated. This is something that in leadership trainings I say all the time. Ask an amateur a question and they will give you an answer. Ask an expert the question and they will say it depends and ask you a question. And that to me is like one of the clearest differences between an amateur and an expert. Confidence and insecurity, or confidence and competence, is amateurs have all the answers, experts have all the questions.
So, original question was, is confidence a leadership skill to have or not? And so maybe it's not necessarily the skill of confidence that it is, but the skill of self-aware of knowing where you are on that spectrum and knowing, do I have the competence and do I have the confidence? And then being able to manage where you are, no matter where you are on that, being able to manage yourself and how you show up. Is that the skill?
Yeah, it's like a skill, but it's also a vibe too. Like the vibe of a confident person is different, right, than an insecure person or a arrogant person. Like when I think of the vibe of a confident person, I think of like calm, measured, open-minded, because they're not worried that it's going to affect like their self-image. We presented some other info or anything like that. They're just confident, and so they're open to other opinions and open to questions and kind of going through things, and they don't take it personal. Are you feeling with me on like confidence is a bit of a vibe? I think.
Yeah. Yes, for sure. But I think that vibe comes from knowing where you are on that and being able to manage that too. Because I do think it's not necessarily like you're born with this vibe or you're not born with this vibe and you can't get the vibe if you don't have the vibe. I think it is being self-aware and then being able to practice that because like when I think of a confident person, there's also body language. It is very clear, like someone that has confidence, they've had studies on this where they stand a little bit taller and use maybe hand gestures more, look you in the eyes versus looking at the floor. There's like body language that comes with it. And I think that vibe is very important though, because it gives a certain emotion to the person that you're speaking to. And so now that person might feel more safe. And that's like where the leadership skill comes to as well. You don't want to be on a team that the leader is like looking down on the floor and is like, "Oh, I don't know what's going to happen next, or I have all the answers, but then there's no confidence that has been proven that they have the answers. And then like trust is down. And so, like how you as a leader, as a team member, show up to that conversation is very different if a person is confident versus not confident as well. So I do think the vibe is very important.
Yeah. And knowing too that that person that's lacking the confidence that you're talking about, all the body language and everything, could also be highly competent, right?
Hmm.
So they could be the most brilliant person in the room with all the answers and all the expertise, and also be the least confident person in the room too, right?
Yes, for sure. Yeah.
So now there's two sides to that, because it's like showing up as the leader, but then also as the leader recognizing this in your team too, that potentially my most competent person is the person that doesn't talk, doesn't make eye contact, and all those things, and actually recognizing that. And then there could be also like a mentorship aspect of that too, of maybe helping. Or again, if we've got charisma, I think the charisma is contagious confidence too, of hey, I'm on this team, I'm on this project, I'm doing these things, and there's like that charisma thing that gives us all confidence about what we're doing as well, the contagious piece that the leader can bring to it.
You brought up such a good point, and I think that is such an important skill that a leader needs to have is a ability to see in your teammates confidence versus competence. Because how many times have we seen people get promoted into a position that is extremely important, and because they were just charismatic and they were just confident in like how they spoke, and so their leader thought that they were competent and thinking that they're competent and not being able to see the difference in that, and then promoting them into a position that they are not competent and not skilled and not ability to do. And then they might have overlooked someone that actually could have been amazing in that role and is very competent in that role, but maybe lacked the self confidence to be able to speak and show you and ask the right questions and stuff too. So I do think that's a very important skill as a leader to see in other people as well.
Yeah. I don't want to open a can of worms or get controversial, but I'll just allude to it, because what you're talking about too does affect the whole conversation about return to office versus work from home too. Because what you just described is the person that often gets promoted in a lot of scenarios isn't as able to do that in this work from home or work from remote. It becomes a little bit more about your competency to be able to get the work done and produce good work versus that personality, charismatic, energy,
Popularity.
popularity. And so it's not a perfect system to describe the divide, because there's so many more nuances and it's more complex than that. But there is a little bit of a divide of the people who have a little bit more of that charismatic energy wanting the return to work or the office work, because that's the environment they thrive in. And for the more competent person who's just like, leave me alone, let me do my work, maybe they lack a little bit of the confidence. They just prefer, to let their work speak for themselves. They're going to be a little bit more like, hey, if I go to the office, that other person distracts me from doing my work, because they're trying to network and do the FaceTime, because that is how they've historically been promoted. So that's a whole can of worms. We've talked about remote work and all that before, but I do think it is a piece of this equation of confidence and competence and everything that goes into it.
Yeah, I agree. So, as a leader, we've talked about a few different aspects of confidence and competence. So, as a leader, we're saying maybe the skill is being able to detect confidence versus competence in your team members. That's one part of it. The other one is being self aware of where you are on the graph, and then being able to like know where you are and manage how you show up on the team. Like you might realize you're not competent in an area yet, but that means okay, I'm going to go get competent, I'm going to go get training, but also maybe I realize that I don't need to be the loudest voice in the room because I know that I'm not competent in this area yet. And so being confident in yourself to be able to say, "Hey, I don't know yet," and being more curious. I think that that is a skill in itself. Because Derek, our whole thing is redefining leadership, right? So the other part of it, though, is in history, we have seen that people want, whether they know it or not, very confident, strong leaders from how they show up, their body language, how tall they are, how big
Yeah.
they are, how just like how they show up. They don't even have to say a word out of their mouth, but you can look at someone sometimes and say they're confident. And that like that draws to people as well. So if we're redefining that, because we know there's a difference between just looking at someone and saying they're confident, I want to be led by them, how would we redefine this now?
Yeah, you're right. Because again, when we went through the history of leadership, right, there was a whole era of traits, right? They look like just because you look like a leader, does not mean you're a good leader or that you should be the leader. But yeah, I mean, George Washington, like, hey, this guy is like freaky tall. Like we think he should be in charge because he's so tall. No, you're right. So a redefinition. So I want to throw something out, Alex, and you just tell me what is this? Is Alex, what is humble confidence?
Humble confidence is being confident in your ability to do something, but be humble enough that you're asking questions and you know that it's not your ego that makes you confident. You're curious and that you're always going to be learning and always getting better at that skill.
And how do you feel about that as a if we're kind of redefining confidence a little bit, like humble confidence or kind of this new era of what leaders need, good thing, bad thing, or where would you place like humble confidence as a leadership skill?
Humble confidence is above confidence in my book. It's almost giving a caveat to confidence. That's kind of it. It's like, what is when we say confident, that's not this person that's just egotistical, just a jerk that makes everyone feel bad. And so we almost put like a caveat to it of like, okay, now we're going to say humble confidence is actually positive because we all think of different things when we think of confidence. So I think it's just redefining the good version of confidence versus the toxic version of confidence.
So as a skill and redefining this as a skill, right? So maybe old traits, it was a little more arrogance or, that whatever leader attitude, that might go along with, hey, I'm like, because again, arrogance to me is like a superiority thing versus confidence. So, how would someone improve their humble confidence? Or how would someone transition from confidence and level up to humble confidence? Like, what are the actions that you could do for that?
I think being curious, being empathetic, knowing that you don't know everything. To me, curiosity is trying to find a way to learn something from everyone. You don't have to agree with everyone, but being able to understand where people are coming from. And if you're able to walk away from any conversation just with a question mark in your mind of, huh, that's interesting. Is that accurate or not? Let me go learn. And so that drive to wanting to learn, curiosity to me is the piece of all of that. What do you think? What's the piece for
Yeah,
you?
I think maybe sometimes there's a perception, that if I ask questions, I'm going to look like I don't know what I'm doing, right? Like almost like the questions will take away from my confidence or, my competence in the eyes of the people around you. And I think a little bit of what you're saying and what I also believe is that no, I actually think it shows your confidence. I mean, if you're asking like dumb questions, and stuff like that, you could also, just come across as very incompetent. So I think there's like a skill in asking good questions and actually asking like curious questions. Typically, a curious question is a good question, right? Versus being manipulative with your questions or showing a lack of preparedness with your questions. Those are all different things. So I think that's just maybe the one of the first steps in this is getting over that fear of, hey, if I come in as the leader, but I'm the one asking all the questions, everyone's gonna lose confidence in me as the leader. But I think what you're saying and what I'm trying to like summarize with us here is it actually instills confidence in your team that I have a humbly confident leader.
Well, listeners, go and reflect on all this stuff. See, are you showing up on the toxic side of confidence or are you showing up with curiosity and humility? And leave us a comment. Let us know if you agree with us and if we need to go back and get more confident in this subject too.